This is the all-new 2025 Mazda CX-70, and in this video I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive for both the plug-in hybrid and the Turbo S version, as well as talk about the kind of fuel economy you can expect and the pricing and how it compares to the competition. And huge thanks to Mazda for flying me out here to Palm Springs to test out these new CX-70s for you guys today. So about the CX-70, well, if you've been following the story of the past few months here, you will know that it is essentially a CX-90 with a different name and a few different changes here to give it a little bit of a different vibe. But on this program, I actually learned some really insightful stuff. So if you had a lot of questions about why they did this the way they did, stay tuned. I have, I think, all the answers here. A lot of the answers have been cleared up for me, and hopefully we'll clear it up for you as well. But anyway, for anyone who's new to the CX-70 here, the main thing up front is that you have a new front bumper here. It's a sportier look compared to the CX-90, and you get black accents here. So a lot of the stuff that was chrome on the CX-90 is now going to be the black accents there. And you know, again, the sportier look with the mesh appearance there for the grille and for those little lower you know, air vents there. And I think it actually is a better look, in my opinion, as someone who likes sportier stuff. You know, this definitely has a more aggressive appearance. You also get some unique wheels here on the CX-70, and I think they also look pretty nice. And then going out back, you know, you have some slight tweaks to the trim around the rear bumper and all that to give it a different appearance as well. But then otherwise, you know, the cliff notes here as far as high level stuff is that it's just CX-90 but with no third row. So you'll have extra cargo space underneath the floor as a result. You also have a remote drop there to drop the second row, something you also don't get in the CX-90. You also have a red leather option, and there's also a couple unique colors that are exclusive to the CX-70 here. So there's a new melting copper color, which is really cool. They offer that. Also the zircon sand color that is on other Mazdas isn't available on CX-90. You can get that here on this. Same with polymetal gray, another great color in the Mazda palette. You can get that here on this. You can't get that on CX-90. So there are some key differences there as well that are going to help us to stand out from a CX-90 on the road. You also here on the 70s get black mirror caps. You also get the black roof rails, and on many of the vehicles you're also going to get black door handles as well. Beyond the surface level stuff here though, there are some minor changes as well I'll talk about as we go for a drive. But as far as conceptual stuff goes, you know, why this instead of CX-60, which is available elsewhere in the world, same kind of styling, just a smaller, shorter thing. That's what everyone was expecting, was a smaller CX-90. Instead, we get the same size. They said essentially CX-60 is the same length as the CX-50. So having two vehicles that are the same size, even if one is a, you know, longitudinal rear-wheel drive base setup and the other is front-wheel drive base, just having two vehicles the same size seemed hard to justify for Mazda. And they said that the Mazda customers were asking for this vehicle. They wanted something that was larger but still two rows. They didn't want to have the appearance of a three-row vehicle and, you know, the image that brings with it. And so, you know, giving this a new name also helps it to be easier to explain to customers at the dealership, and makes it nice and simple. Instead of saying, oh, well, there's different packages to delete a third row and this, that, and the other, they just say it's a new vehicle, CX-70. It makes it simpler and easier to understand. And hearing all that stuff now, it's really cleared up, you know, why this has a new name, even though it does look, you know, pretty much identical in a lot of ways, especially from the side and the back. So, you know, it's great that this is something customers have been wanting, and now they're going to have this option. And it is also targeting a different buyer, you know, people who don't need that third row, that, you know, are at a different point in their lives versus a CX-90 buyer. And so, you know, now knowing all that stuff, it makes a lot more sense. The interior of the CX-70 is, again, basically identical to a CX-90. So if you want to hear a full deep dive on this interior, my wife and I did a full in-depth interior review on the CX-90 last year. So I'll link that video here at the end of this one if you want to hear all the thoughts on this interior and go through every nook and cranny. But there are a couple differences here for the CX-70 I will highlight that are important. First off is a red leather option you can get here for these. It only comes on the Turbo S and the Premium trim and on the Premium Plus trim of the plug-in hybrid. But great to have a red leather interior. I'm a sucker for red interiors, so it's awesome they've added that. This one, as you can see, has this nice, you know, tan color that looks great. There's also black, and I believe also the same grayish, whitish kind of color you can get like in the CX-90s. And you know, these interiors are so nice. I mean, so plush and padded everywhere you look. All the, you know, microfiber here on the dash and stuff. It's a really nice touch. I mean, these are definitely so much more luxurious feeling than basically all the competitors, and very, very nice. Now, the other things nice here. You know, the 12.3-inch screen, which does have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, which is touch enabled, by the way, for that smartphone integration. That is still in here, but now it has also Amazon Alexa capability built in as well, and this is rolling it out here in the CX-70. It will most likely come to the CX-90 and other vehicles down the road or very soon, but you know, debuting here on this. And then otherwise though, the second row, the notable thing there is there's of course no captain's chair option like you get. Honestly, you have to get it in the Turbo S versions of the CX-90, so it's really nice if you want to have a bench but you want this powertrain. This CX-70 also provides that unique combo here of having a nice, you know, soft, comfortable bench there that does slide, and has full down center armrests there with cup holders built into it. You have, even before you drop the second row here, you have still 40 cubic feet of space there. It's a really long amount of space for the cargo area. That is really the big selling point here of the CX-90 over basically all of its competitors, is it's going to just beat everyone on cargo space. If cargo space is king to you, this is the way to go. And honestly, you know, because of the little pockets under the floor that I mentioned earlier, it has a slight bit more cargo space than the CX-90. But then whenever you drop the second row, it goes to 75 cubic feet of space. So I mean, a ton of space. It's also a nice tall space, you know, great for stacking things and all that as well, since they didn't try and do the coupé thing here with this, like you see with some of the other competitors, like the Volkswagen Atlas Cross Sport and others. And so I mean, really great. You have all that. You'll see they still even retained the cup holders there that used to be, you know, from the third row. You know, they say that's gonna be like for a tailgating kind of scenario, things like that. You know, extra little storage spaces there. You also see there's a power outlet. But yeah, so as far as two-row SUVs goes, I mean, this is gonna be an unbeatable amount of cargo space back there, really, for any of the segments it's competing against. And so that's what you get when you take a through-row crossover and you remove the, you know, third row out of it. You're gonna have a bunch of space. The same thing could apply for, again, any other three-row crossover when you drop the third row. But you know, having that space under the floor does, you know, give you a little bit more space. A slight advantage, but you know, so compared to other two-row stuff though, whenever you know, to have just that comparison, it is of course going to be the best. All right, so setting off here in this CX-70. So the first things you notice about it, again, everything is going to be very, very much identical to the CX-90. It's, again, the same vehicle. So again, if you've driven CX-90, you will actually have a few surprises though, which I'll get to in a minute. But as far as just the basic stuff goes, you know, it's all the same. You know, same great visibility, same, you know, view out of the back. You know, it's all pretty easy. It does feel like a larger vehicle. You're sitting up nice and high. It does feel kind of big, but you know, you have the 360 cameras and all the parking sensors and all that to help you out to maneuver this vehicle in tight spaces. But you know, it gives you a very commanding view of the road here, and just feels really substantial going down the road. Nice and solid, nice and smooth too. I mean, this road we're on currently is nice and smooth. That certainly helps. But you know, I've been really impressed with the CX-90. I lived with the Turbo S version of that for a week and the plug-in hybrid for a full week. And so now with the CX-70 here, it's going to be, again, more of that same great goodness. But we'll do an acceleration here just in normal mode, see how it does. So, pulls really nicely. Seems like it is a little quicker with the response. So just the basic stuff for anyone new to CX-70 here and CX-90 in general. This Turbo S version runs their 3.3 liter inline-6 turbocharged engine with a 48 volt mod hybrid system assisting you as well. And altogether here for this top version, it does 340 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque on premium gas. I believe it drops down to 319 horsepower. Torque stays the same even if you run regular. You can run regular in this. You don't have to run premium. But you know, it's a good amount of punch. But what I noticed was that the plug-in hybrid was actually the quicker one off the line because of the instant electric response you get in that one. And I will be driving the plug-in hybrid for a longer period of time tomorrow, and so you'll see that later in this video here. But you know, it's really nice. Now I think I am picking up on a little bit of a more responsive throttle. We're going to try it off again from another stop sign here and see. But I've also noticed the steering feels a little lighter. And one of the people that worked really closely on this vehicle told me there's been some software updates that have happened since all the press for CX-90 last year. Still a little bit of a delay there, I think, but I think the transmission is certainly more responsive for sure. So he said that they have retuned some things, and he kind of left it up to me to, you know, kind of figure it out. But what I'm feeling is that steering feels a little lighter, which I think is appropriate for a vehicle like this. Mazdas in the past have had, you know, a little bit stiffer steering that I didn't love, especially for just regular, ordinary family vehicles and nothing that's, you know, sports car-like or anything. So I mean, steering feels really great now. Throttle response is nice. Transmission is nice and responsive. And so far, I mean, I only did a couple little inching up scenarios so far, but so far it seems like the transmission is smoother. That was my biggest complaint with CX-90, was the transmission could be a little rough at times. I'm going to really keep a hard eye out for that today and tomorrow and really see if I can pick up on any remnants of that here. I'm hopefully going to live with one of these for a week as well to further, test it on my own turf. But I don't know, I'm like, so far it feels like all of my little minor complaints with CX-90 have been fixed here with CX-70. And Mazda did also let me know that, these software updates you're seeing in CX-70 here for the steering, for the throttle, for the transmission, all that kind of stuff, those tweaks are also going to roll out to CX-90 eventually. It'll be a dealer, thing that's going to be done when next time you take your vehicle in for service, whatever. I'm not sure the exact timelines for all of those updates, but these are things that they're going to be updating and improving the CX-90s as well. So you don't need to get a CX-70 in order to get these improvements on this platform. They're going to also enhance the CX-90s as well, which is great. And this, of course, applies, I'm sure, going forward to, next model year CX-90s and all of that, will get all of these same improvements as they refine this platform. Again, we're talking about a brand new platform in its first year of life here, and they're learning a lot, they're improving a lot, and it's great to see that they're receptive to the feedback, that they're, actively working to improve all of that and make this platform the best that it possibly can be. Other things as far as differences between this and that, now these do weigh between like 80 to I think about 120 pounds lighter, thanks to the removal of the third row. And so as a result, depending on the trim that you're in, it's going to feel a tiny bit lighter. Most people probably aren't going to be able to pick up on that because these still weigh about 4,863 pounds, for these Turbo S versions. So not a light vehicle, and the plug-in hybrid one's over 5,000 pounds. But as a result of that slight weight difference, they did retune the suspension. Now, they did say that with the retune, though, it's basically just to make it feel the same as the CX-90, the same kind of handling characteristics. So don't expect the CX-70 to be any sportier feeling or any stiffer or softer or anything. It's going to be basically the same. And again, my first few miles of driving here, that seems to be the vibe that I'm getting here as well. It feels just as smooth and comfortable as CX-90, and that's a really good thing. We have very straight roads here so far, but hopefully tomorrow I'll get some more twisties to try out the handling a little bit as well. But again, I'm not expecting any big surprises here. My takeaway last year from CX-90 was it was one of the best handling ones in its segment, thanks to this unique platform that really only the luxury brands like BMW even offer, where you have rear-wheel drive base platform. All-wheel drive is standard though on these, but it's rear biased and the engine is longitudinally mounted. That all helps with your balance, the handling characteristics, the driving dynamics. It all is just improved. It's a much more sophisticated kind of platform compared to a lot of the front-wheel drive based stuff that you even get in some of the luxury ones still. And these run a double wishbone front suspension and a multi-link rear suspension there, in the back is independent, of course. And so again, it's really just a setup to really optimize this platform that we have here and really leverage all those benefits. And again, it feels really good. I was on some really tight corners in San Francisco last year, outside of San Francisco, and it was just really a blast to drive this on tight corners. If you are an enthusiast, this is definitely going to be one of the top ones to check out in this segment, whether you're talking 2-row or again 3-row with CX-90. Same thing applies here. That transmission, by the way, is an 8-speed automatic across the board. Whether you get the plug-in hybrid version or the turbo, they all run through the 8-speed automatic. Even for the electric one, it still feeds power through that transmission there. And it's not like other plug-in hybrids where you have an electric rear axle. This has a physical connection from the front to the rear for the engine there and for the electric components as well. But yeah, I mean, it drives really great so far, and all the other stuff is going to be the same as far as fuel economy and even pricing compared to CX-90. So fuel economy here is rated for this Turbo S version at 23 mpg in the city, 28 on the highway, and 25 combined. But then pricing is also identical. The only difference is this starts a trim higher. There is no base select trim like you get on CX-90. So theoretically, this has a higher starting price than CX-90, but whenever you compare same trim CX-90 to this, it's identical with the pricing. So would have been nice to see a little bit of a discount, I think, considering I'm assuming that the bin you have there in place of the third row is probably cheaper than having a third row. So there should be a little bit of cost savings there. Would have been nice to see that reflected in the window sticker. But, it's still just nice that at least the price isn't higher. They didn't try and spin this as some upgrade or some kind of premium thing or something like some other companies, again, have tried to do in the past with their coupe versions and things like that. But so it's going to be the same same. It's just really going to come down to, you know, do you want the 3-row practicality, or do you want to have this slight bit of extra storage under the floor there and the, you know, different vibe of a 2-row SUV, even if, you know, from the outside this still just, you know, looks like a CX-90. Now, as far as the Turbo S version goes, that means pricing starts at about $52,450, and then for going up to the top trim of the Turbo S here, then those are going to be topping out right under $56,000. And you know, really solid pricing. You know, Mazda likes to compare this to, especially this Turbo S version, to, you know, the luxury competitors, and, you know, all of those are going to be a lot more expensive while having less space. And you know, whether you compare them to the 3-row ones and just drop the 3rd row, kind of like how Mazda did here with this, or if you compare it to, you know, the smaller 2-row stuff, either way, they're all more expensive. Whether you're talking about, like, for example, Lexus RX or TX, both are going to be more than this. And yes, this doesn't have the badge prestige of those European luxury brands and stuff. But, I mean, especially even compared to the Audi and the Mercedes, this has a better platform with a true rear-wheel drive-based thing. And, you know, the 6-cylinder engine and all that. I mean, it is really impressive what Mazda's done here, and so the Turbo S version still continues to be really sweet, especially if you're someone who, you know, loves to see his 6-cylinder engines, you know, sticking around. I mean, who else is coming out with a brand new inline-6 turbo engine? Like, nobody. So I mean, if you're someone who likes to see, you know, this reversal of the trend of downsizing everything, got to support this inline-6 version here. And you know, it's just, again, it takes a lot of bravery in the market these days to come out with a brand new 6-cylinder engine, and one that's as punchy as this is as well. As far as safety tech goes here for CX-70, again, that is all going to be, you know, copied from CX-90 with one little exception. One difference is that this is introducing their unresponsive driver response kind of system. So if it detects that you're using the adaptive cruise control system, which is also standard here on these, if it detects that you're using that but you're not responding to the prompts to take over control, then it will be able to, I believe, put the hazards on and stop in the lane. So you know, a nice extra safety thing there for sure. And you know, cool, that's rolled out here to this. That, of course, will also be rolled out, I'm sure, to CX-90 and everything else in the lineup at some point. But I'm going to put it up into the sport mode here, and I'm going to just stomp on it from my usual, like, turn that onto this back road thing, which is about 5 miles per hour rolling, stomping on it and see what it does. Here we go. Okay, that is better. Because before it was like a 1-2 beat, then it went. Now, that's a lot better. And it's, honestly, I don't know, maybe it's just my imagination. It also kind of sounds like I'm hearing a little bit more from the motor than I have in the past. But no, that feels better for sure. I'm so glad that they, you know, improved and tweaked things so quickly here. Just one model year later, you know, we have some really great improvements. I'm going to have to spend more time on this tomorrow. Stay tuned for my thoughts on the plug-in hybrid, but I think they may have just perfected the CX-90 and CX-70 here with these software changes. All right, so now we're driving through some more congestion here, you know, doing a little more stopping and starting and all that. And so what I'm noticing is that it is definitely smoother inching up, and it seems like it's mostly fixed. The only thing I had noticed is that whenever the car wasn't expecting a throttle input, because I was slowing down, but I thought it was going to come to a stop, but then I immediately got back on the gas. There was a split second there where, like, I was like pushing the pedal and it did give me a response, and then it did kick in. So I mean, no vehicle's perfect with all of its throttle tuning, but you know, there's still, I don't think it is 100% perfect now, but it is definitely, you know, again, mostly fixed in my opinion, and really, really good. The only other little complaint I can say still is that the stop-start system is a little rough. It's not as smooth as what it is in some of the competing vehicles still, and so that is one area where there could be some more improvement as well, just because, you know, it tries to kick the gas engine off and then immediately it's like, oh wait, it's now 98 degrees outside, we got to kick the gas engine back on to keep that AC running nice and cold. And so whenever it does that, you know, you feel the whole car still does a little shudder, and you feel it. It definitely is discernible. There's other vehicles where you can't discern when the gas engine is turning on at all. This, you know when the gas engine is turning on. So again, not perfect, but as far as drivability stuff goes, basically all of my drivability complaints are solved, and I'm totally happy with this vehicle. I now have no problem recommending, you know, this or the CX-90 to anybody. You know, from a drivability standpoint, it's going to be totally fine to live with, I think. Again, I certainly will do more testing here, but a Turbo S version, at least so far, is fantastic, and I'm really happy with all those changes. Alright, so setting off here in the plug-in hybrid version of the CX-70. Right now I'm in electric mode, which is, the really nice thing about the plug-in hybrid is that you have 26 miles of all-electric range. This vehicle actually, whenever I first hopped in, it was telling me 29 miles. So again, your mileage is going to vary depending on your driving style and all that. But even after several miles of driving now, it's still quoting me 25 miles of range here. And whenever you first start this vehicle up, it defaults to like a hybrid mode that uses the electric motors, but basically will go into the gas mode if you request too much power. It's not quite as punchy from a plug-in hybrid standpoint compared to some of the other plug-in hybrid vehicles from other manufacturers. But again, since there isn't really a lot of plug-in hybrids in this segment, I can just say that I just was recently in the Lexus RX 450 H+, and so far this feels like it has a little less punch than that does, even though that has less horsepower slightly. I think just the electric motors on that are a little stronger, but this should be enough power to do most of your daily driving stuff, no problem. And again, I tested the plug-in hybrid a good bit already last year in the CX-90. It's a really great powertrain, but I wish that it defaulted to an electric mode automatically whenever you first got in the vehicle with a charge, because that's like with the Lexus system. It always wants to drain that battery first and then use the gas engine. It's still kind of this mix of, if you are driving slowly enough, you can have the EV mode. Otherwise, though, if you want to force it into an EV mode, there is a drive mode selector here. You have to manually put it into electric mode yourself, and then it will focus on depleting that battery and, cap your power to whatever those electric motors can put out. And I'm going to do a highway pass here, just in electric mode. It goes into this boost thing whenever you go to floor the gas. It gives you all of that, little things got. But I mean, even on this 70-mile-per-hour highway, doing a pass there, it was still totally fine, totally sufficient amount of power there. So, I mean, it is a full-fledged electric motor. It is, a good amount of punch, and it's a really nice, quiet cruiser, especially, of course, when you're in this electric mode. You do hear a little bit more of the mechanical workings, and you can hear like the regen braking whenever you slow down, as we can maybe demonstrate here. You can hear like a very soft, like friction sound. Obviously if you have music going, you have other stuff going, you're not going to be hearing all these little things, but if you are in total silence and you listen for that stuff, you're going to hear all that stuff working, and that's a little less refined than, again, you don't hear any of that stuff working in a Lexus RX plug-in hybrid. Now, again, something like that is $70,000 to start, so way more expensive than this, so not, a real fair comparison, but Mazda likes to compare this to those luxury, competitors, so that's why I bring that one up, because that is one of the other plug-in hybrids that's similar in power, similar as far as capabilities and all that, and, but also, since all that electric power is going through the transmission, you do still feel the shift, so it's a little less smooth than that Lexus system, for example, which bypasses, any kind of transmission with an electric axle and all that in that vehicle, so that it's smoother. So this isn't the most refined, electric experience for a plug-in hybrid, but it's still totally fine. And again, you have to really be sitting here trying to pick it apart to really have any complaints. I think most people aren't going to even pay any attention to it, and it's going to just give you that great electric, drivability, and for the around town stuff here, behind traffic and all that, plenty of power, no complaints with the power cap or anything like that whenever you're doing the normal suburban around town kind of stuff. But we got some fun corners coming up here, so let's go ahead and put it up into the sport mode. The gas engine's on now to have everything work together here to give us maximum performance. And wow, yeah, that wave of electric push that you just get in addition to that gas engine is really cool, and yeah, it feels great. So for anyone who's unfamiliar here, the plug-in hybrid setup for Mazda runs a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine along with those electric motors, and altogether they do 323 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. Same torque figure as the turbo inline-6 motor in the Turbo S there, just a little bit down on horsepower, not even that much. That 323 number though is on premium fuel, but if you want to run 87, you just lose 4 horsepower. That's it. So totally, fine to run regular in this, and yeah, it's great though. So we got these nice windy roads here, and man, this corner just keeps on going and going. This is a crazy awesome road. I actually was on this road many years ago now for the CX-30 launch, and so now doing this in the larger 70 here, I mean, it's still really great. It's so much fun to hustle, and this is where this really shines. And if you're an enthusiast, this is where, you know, any kind of corners you take it on are where you're going to really feel the awesome, you know, joys of the Mazda platform here and the more dynamic nature of it compared to, you know, what you get on some of the competing vehicles. But yeah, this thing, I mean, I'm hustling it here, and it's charging up this mountain pass totally fine, and yeah, I'm pushing this thing and it's great. You really feel that suspension getting a workout here, the platform. And I mean, yes, these are heavier. This, for a plug-in hybrid version, it's almost 5,200 pounds. I think it's like 5,198, something like that. But I mean, doing, you know, really some impressive speeds here on these corners. I mean, the corners are banked a little bit and stuff to help us out, but I mean, you know, pushing it. I mean, you feel the weight for sure in a very challenging scenario like this. I don't know how many people are going to ever be on a corner like this in one of these, but man, it is keeping up just fine here, and I'm having a good time. I mean, this is really fun. I mean, this road's going to be fun in anything, but especially when it's something like this where you can keep a decent pace going. I mean, that is where the magic of this really shines through. And so yeah, like I said back with CX-90 last year, if you're an enthusiast that appreciates good handling, or just the turbo inline-6 engine, which again you can't get, you know, very many places these days, I mean, this is really going to be really the only pick because of, again, the better platform and these cool combos, which even, you know, the plug-in hybrid thing is something that you really can't get even in the two-row thing, you know, outside of the luxury competitors that are way more expensive. But as far as the mainstream competitors goes, it's just Grand Cherokee, which is obviously not nearly as good with handling and isn't, you know, is nearly set up for street driving. That's more of an off-road focus with those, you know, and the rugged thing. This has no intentions of doing any of that rugged stuff, which is great because it means you can just focus on having a fantastic driving experience and one that is just really top-notch. And man, yeah, this is great. I could do this all day in this thing. But I mean, this little 2.5 liter four-cylinder, you would think in a vehicle this large and this heavy, you know, that it'd be really working itself hard. But I mean, we're only at 3,500 RPM here, and it's just, it really feels so much stronger. You know, on paper this combo might not sound like it's that great, but if you test drive it, I mean, like I've said with 90, same deal. This is definitely the way I would go. I love the plug-in hybrid component and the fact that, you know, this engine just does such a good job in this, and that instant electric punch gives you better response, honestly, than that turbo 6 motor, ever so slightly, just because the instant nature of electric power means that this would be my pick actually over the Inline-6, which is an enthusiast might be crazy to hear, but the plug-in hybrid is definitely the way I would go, I think. And you also, even though it's heavier for the weight, you have less weight over the nose with the 4-cylinder versus the 6-cylinder. So I think it actually, to me, yes, there's a weight trade-off there, but I think, you know, you have a slightly lighter nose here in these two, and it just feels really good. I mean, you can't go wrong with either pick. It just comes down to what your preference is and whether or not you can charge at home, which is really the only way the plug-in hybrid makes sense. I mean, you can use it as a regular hybrid, but it's kind of a waste. You're much better off, you know, actually, you know, using that electric range and that battery. But we found a relatively flat piece of road. I got a mile of range left. Let's try and go for an acceleration here. Here we go. Instant. Yeah, that's the instant response I love with this electric powertrain. Man, yeah, so strong. I love the way this thing accelerates. It's so good. And I think it sounds really good too with that little 4-cylinder. I really like hearing that motor rev out. It just, yeah, it's a great combo. Also, these plug-in hybrids run a 17.8 kilowatt hour battery, and it takes about 2 hours and 20 minutes to charge if you have a 240 volt charger at your house or workplace. But if you're just going to plug it into a regular wall outlet, they say it's going to be around 11 hours to recharge the battery. So it should be totally fine. You know, you plug it in every night, it should be ready to go, you know, every morning and give you that electric commute. One other difference here for the plug-in hybrid to mention is that the tow rating is slightly different. So you can tow up to 5,000 pounds with the Turbo S version, but for the plug-in hybrid here, the max towing is going to be 3,500 pounds. And whenever you run out of battery charge and you go into the gas engine here, it's going to be getting 25 mpg is what they say, just strictly on that gas power, because again, it is still a hybrid, and so that's the combined rating of 25 there. And that's great because that means that you're still going to have better than average efficiency for a three-row crossover even with that. And you know, even with, like, right now the battery is basically depleted. It says I have 1 mile of range. It's been saying that for a while now, even though it's been basically depleted. But you know, even like we got a straightaway here, I'll do a little acceleration, just in normal mode, but I mean, it still is really quick because it still, you know, it keeps a reserve of electric power to give you a boost, and it tells you on the dash here it's doing that little boosting for you, and it's still really quick, so it doesn't feel like it's just some, you know, 190 horsepower four-cylinder here pulling this big vehicle. It actually has more punch than that, a good bit more. And also, by the way, if you do want to power up the battery without a plug, there is also a generator mode here, so it can use the gas engine to charge the battery there. That will take away a little bit of, you know, acceleration performance if you're running that. And now going the other way, coming down the canyon roads here, I'm able to use the brakes a little bit more. And the brake setup is really nice. It's really well done. It feels just like the regular gas version. There's no weird hybrid, you know, feeling like you sometimes get with some other, you know, electrified vehicles and their brake pedals. This is really nicely tuned. The only thing I will say is that it has, you know, I'd say closer to like BMW style of brake tuning now, where there's, you know, a good bite towards the top of the pedal, but at low speeds you do have to be a little more delicate with your brake inputs, because otherwise it can kind of clamp down a little more aggressively than you might be expecting. So it's a little different than other Mazdas that usually require more muscle to, you know, hit the brake pedal there. This seems like it's a little bit lighter with the effort there. So, you know, just a little bit of a difference from what, you know, I'm used to with other Mazdas, but still feels really good, very responsive. And again, it's worked for other companies, you know, that tune in similar ways, and feels totally fine. Another thing that really helps the handling here in the CX-70 is the fact that you have 275 wide tires, both front and rear for this vehicle. And so it's a lot of meat there, and really helps to give you tons of grip, and way more grip than what you get with any of the other mainstream competitors. And you have to go up to the luxury brands and even some of their sportier versions to get tires this wide. And I mean, they're just, you know, all seasons. It's not like we have summer tires on here or anything, but I mean, as we're going around these, you know, very tight, you know, hairpin turns here, I mean, it just is so grippy, so poised. And even at 5,200 pounds, this thing is just, you know, I mean, you feel the weight once again, but it is just handling it all without a sweat. And I think those tires certainly play a big part in that. And the last thing to mention here about the plug-in hybrid version is its pricing and how it compares to the competitors. So as far as pricing for these plug-in hybrids, are going to be starting about $54,400 and then go up to $57,450 for this top Premium Plus version, which doesn't have quite as much content as that Turbo S still, but, you know, is very, very close and very, very similar in most of the other ways. But so, you know, 57. Now, keep in mind, the big thing here, because Mazda's actually said that for CX-90 so far, they have a 40% take rate for the plug-in hybrid, which is way better than basically everybody else that offers plug-in hybrids. That's a two-part combo as far as why that is. First off, Mazda, unlike most other companies doing plug-in hybrids, is actually able to keep up with demand. Unlike the long wait list you see from Toyota and Hyundai and Kia and all that for their plug-in hybrids, there's no wait list for these, really, it seems. They're available, they're plentiful, but it's also partially because now with you know, the way the government does the incentives for these, if you lease one of these, you get the $7,500 off, essentially, you know, so it lowers the lease payment on these by a lot and makes it so that, you know, again, comes down to your numbers and where you are and all that, but, you know, could end up being that this is similar pricing or even maybe less expensive than the regular gas versions. And so, you know, when you factor that in, that's going to sweeten the deal and make those lease payments really attractive, then it's no wonder the plug-in hybrid, you know, is as popular as it is, especially since there's no compromise. It's essentially the same horsepower, you have that great efficiency. And again, even if you can't plug it in, you know, you're still going to get really solid efficiency here in this. Although not like, you know, the Inline-6 does bad fuel economy, you know, on the highway, that still can manage that 28 figure. But it's just, you know, worth noting that, you know, this is just really a no-compromise plug-in hybrid, and plug-in hybrids really give you the best of all the world. So if you're not ready to go for a full EV, you know, Mazda's got a great solution here with a plug-in hybrid. But as far as how that pricing compares to the competition, you know, there's really not a lot of competitors. If you want a plug-in hybrid in the non-luxury segment of these larger mid-sized SUVs, right now I think it's only the Kia Sorento, and there's really nothing else. Any of the other main competitors in the 3-row segment or these larger 2-row segments, they're all pretty much older tech, older vehicles for the most part. And so the only other one that's kind of electrified that's just brand new as well is the Toyota Crown Signia, but that's just a regular hybrid. There's no plug-in available for that either yet. So Mazda's really ahead of the curve, and the fact they're ahead of the curve and they're able to keep up with the production demands and the demands from the consumers is great. And so this really is in a class of its own whenever you're talking about the mainstream stuff. As far as the luxury competitors, since Mazda's really making this premium push, there are a couple more options in the luxury segment. You have, like I said, the RX 450h Plus. There's also the Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe, which maybe isn't a premium competitor, but is priced like a premium competitor with how expensive those are. Again, maybe there's a lease deal to be had there that could make this a little bit better. But I honestly, even though Grand Cherokee, doesn't have to be an off-roady thing, it is so focused on that, and that's really the perk of going for the Grand Cherokee, is the better off-road capability. If you're not interested in that, I feel like the Grand Cherokee's setup is kind of a waste for the average person. I mean, it's still going to be totally fine, but I think you have a much smoother ride here in this. You have the extra space since they don't offer the Grand Cherokee L with the plug-in hybrid 4xe, at least not yet. As again, time of me filming this, that's probably coming soon. But in the meantime, this is going to have way more space than the RX 450 as well. Way more space than the X5. And then if you want to be more fair, because again, this is based on a 3-row vehicle, but even then, that just makes the price disparity even larger, because then if you're talking plug-in hybrid Lexus TX and drop the 3rd row on that, those are going to be, again, nearly $80,000, high 70s for those. And then same thing goes if you're talking X5 plug-in hybrid, X7 plug-in hybrid, GLE, has the plug-in hybrid. All of those are, going to be way more expensive. And in most of those cases, you don't have really any more power than this either, or maybe just a little bit more, but not much. So, I mean, it's going to really come down to how much you want those true luxury brands and those badges. But, I mean, there's a clear advantage here if you're willing to go for the Mazda. Again, you have a very premium interior still. You have that premium layout of the, longitudinal engine, rear-wheel drive-based thing. The great refinements, the great ride, very luxury car feeling in here. If you're not stuck on a badge, I think that the Mazda is obviously a huge value, coming in, 10 grand or more or less. In many cases, it could be 20 grand less than those competitors. And again, has so much space, so much value, so much capability here with the electric thing, and a lot of power. And also you have the Mazda reliability, which can't be said for a lot of the other European brands that have expensive maintenances. The Mazda, especially with this 4-cylinder, is a proven motor in the plug-in hybrid. It's been around for a good long while now, and this one, I wouldn't have any reservations keeping this thing for 10 years plus. And I can't say that about all the European competitors. I don't think you'd want to own those out of a warranty period. So, there's that other perk going forward as well, in addition to all the savings and all the other perks, and also just having something different than all the other sea of X5s and X7s and, all the Mercedes stuff that's out there. I mean, this is unique. It's different. I think it's beautiful styling too, which, as we're seeing, BMW getting more polarizing with their styling. There's also a advantage here to this being beautiful, classic styling that will, I think, age much better than all the polarizing stuff you see from BMW and many other companies these days. And so, again, just add that to the pile of reasons why I think the Mazda CX-70 makes a ton of sense. I think for the same money, again, if you want maximum value, just get the CX-90, get that 3rd row for free, basically, and have that extra capability in the rare chance you need it. But if you're someone who never needs a 3rd row, or just doesn't want the idea of having a 3-row crossover, and you want to be solely a 2-row thing, again, this makes a ton of sense. And again, just a really, really solid offering here from Mazda. And while I, initially had my reservations, why do this vehicle? What's the point of the CX-70 if it's basically the same thing as the CX-90? Now, knowing what I know, as far as what customers have been demanding, I think that this makes a lot of sense for Mazda, and I think it's going to do very well for them, hopefully. So, anyway, that's all of my thoughts here, though, on the CX-70. Let me know your thoughts on them in the comments below. Huge thanks to Mazda for bringing me out here to Palm Springs to drive this vehicle on some great roads here and provide me with this opportunity. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.